Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and to harness creative expression to heal ourselves and to heal our world. Welcome to Hoorf, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Hexscape. My guest for this episode is Ivan Hardcastle. Ivan Hardcastle is a registered and licensed occupational therapist with experience since 2007 in parent and professional education and clinical outpatient pediatric settings. He specializes in education and treatment of emotional regulation, autism, sensory integration dysfunction, pediatric incontinence, and a wide variety of additional pediatric diagnoses and disorders. Ivan has been a local and state presenter since 2008 for schools, behavioral specialists, Early Years Idaho Health and Welfare, State Conference, PATH International, that's the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship, Idaho Conference, Idaho Occupational Therapy Association's annual conference, and varied other in person and virtual presentations. Ivan helps families and professionals grow and succeed through high quality online coaching that transforms families and individuals. Ivan is also a talented thespian and a gifted woodworker. I'm excited to have him on the podcast today to talk about both his professional and creative pursuits. Welcome to Hoorf. Hello, Ivan. Welcome to Hoorf.
Hey, I am so excited.
Oh gosh, I'm excited to have you here too. It's been I was gonna say it's been a minute since we've seen each other, but it's been a few years.
It's been a
So
couple years, yeah.
so it's so great to have you here. As happens with every time I invite one of my friends to be here on the podcast, we had some great material before I hit record. I was like,
Yeah.
we missed all the good stuff.
We talked about dinosaurs, we talked about chunky T-Rex, we talked about piggies, everything.
Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about all of the things that we used to talk about at lunch. Yeah, so it's great to see you. It's wonderful to catch up. It got me out of bed on a Saturday morning, so what's not
Yeah,
to
that's
love?
good.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
great.
Yeah.
Once we figured out our headphones and microphones, and you have quite the setup over there today.
It's working. It's
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, I just had to change which one mine was plugged into, and it was like, oh, it works. So I'm just gonna jump right in and ask how you have received care this week.
Oh man. So one of the cool things that has been happening is that in in one of the schools I go out to, the principal of the elementary school has been fantastic. And if I'm having an off day or she's having an off day, we just are able to support each other and kind of lift each other up. And one of the things that we have focused on is just recognizing goodness in our lives and then telling the other person and just sharing the positives. And so that has been a consistent thing happening. And the thing from this week in particular, and we'll get into this later as we talk about some of the things that I'm doing, is that I of my own nature tend to downplay myself, and I'm learning to recognize that I don't give myself credit for the things that I do or the things
Mm-hmm.
that people see me providing for them. It's still weird to talk about. But she, with some of the new things that I'm trying to do, she says, Ivan, you are not giving yourself enough credit, and you need to recognize and see the ways that you're helping others. And then she started listing off the ways that I help her, which I did not recognize. And she just went on and on and on and on and on. And so what a boost to me, and still weird to think about, because I again, of my nature, I'm just like, yeah, like I don't like that. It feels weird it feels braggy. It feels, I like, it feels weird. That's not my personality. But just to have somebody say, hey, you really do make a difference in my life, and you make a difference in other people's lives. That's incredible to hear in a great boost. So yeah, that cared for me.
That's really nice that you have that kind of like mutual relationship where you can support each other, especially like as you know, and people who've listened long enough know, I burned out really hard in the education field.
Yes, yes,
And being in a care field yourself and working in schools and in a clinical setting, like I'm sure you've seen it too. Like it's getting harder and harder to be in
yeah,
those people facing positions and caring for people day in and day out. And so
yeah,
it gladdens my soul to hear that people in general, but like you specifically, because you're who I'm talking to, have like a mutually supportive relationship in what can be a very stressful environment, and that you're taking that you're learning to like accept compliments and take credit for the good you're doing. Because having worked with you, I know that you make a huge difference in children's lives. You worked with some of my students, and I saw them make incredible growth. And even for me, like, and we'll get into this later too. Like, I benefited from my students working with you. And actually, I mentioned actually on the episode that just came out how the sensory therapy that you did with my students helped me. Um, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD yet, and I was like, I kind of wonder if that therapist knew I had ADHD. I'm like, he probably did. I said, I think I was the last one to know. And it was the other day. I was like, I'm interviewing him. I should ask if he had a hunch, or like more than a hunch. I bet he knew.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I knew.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like, who didn't know?
yeah.
Me, I didn't know. But like, I'm glad that you're able to like allow others to speak into your life like that and say, hey, really, you've made a huge difference to like for all of these reasons. Because I think being able to hear that is like kind of what keeps us going some days.
Yeah, there's so two thoughts to back up a little bit. You talk about how hard it is to be in a caring position and in an education position. So for her, being out there, one of the blessings that I enjoy providing for her is to be able to lift her up, because she has hard days, and it's students and it's staff. She's in administration, and sometimes there are challenges, but she is able to talk through them and overcome them. And I help her with that. And she's helped me to see that I help her, and that's good. But yeah, later on, we're going to be talking about, again, some of the stuff that I'm doing, that I'm just starting. I am taking a look at not just the students and the families, but I'm taking a look at school staff, and there's some exciting stuff happening right now. We're right in the middle of it getting started, so we can talk about that later on as well.
I mean, do you want to jump into that now? We can flip flop questions. I have no problem with
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're like jumping, like you're like leaning out of your chair a little bit. You're like, we're gonna talk about that later, but like this is exciting. I'm like, let's talk
Yeah.
about it now. I'm not tied to the order of the questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh man, it has been just over a year and a half that I quit my job.
I didn't realize that when I asked you to be on the show until I looked at and you sent me your CV to do your bio, and I was like, "Oh, you left your old job." I had no idea. You were like the boss.
Yeah. So I was one of the owners, several owners, which adds its own complexity.
Mm-hmm.
I was in charge of all HR stuff of a company of about 40 plus employees, therapists, and I was a full-time clinician, and then the other owner duties on top of it. So just really heavy with all sorts of stuff going on. Some things came up that have been kind of brewing in the back of my head, and we decided to hire an HR person for the company to help me with my load, because it was quite heavy. And she came in, and 2 weeks later, she came to me. I had some time off, and she came to me, and she's like, Ivan, we need to meet. And I was like, okay. So I went in on a Sunday afternoon, and nobody's in the office, and so we're just sitting there. And she says, "Hey, I have some concerns with this company." And she just and there's all these things that were in the back of my head that I didn't feel good about, but I wasn't recognizing to myself, and so they became very real. I'm just like, okay, here's this new person, non-biased, hasn't been here, and they can see all these things. And so I then tried to address them and was ignored. And I thought, okay, well, this is not me. I'm not going to try to do something that isn't me and doesn't feel good to me. And so then I left and I started my own company. And so that first summer was a lot of learning and trial and hard emotions of worry that I was failing, just all these new things. And getting through the summer and then into the fall, working with insurances can be quite challenging. I
Oof.
started getting paid. Yeah. So last school year was all about, hey, I'm surviving and hey, I can take care of my family, and learning that things were going to be okay. And then this last summer hit, and I realized that I wasn't just surviving, I was doing okay. And right towards the end of summer, a couple of things happened. I started to feel like, hey, Ivan, you're still trapped by the old mindset of what you were doing and what you thought was possible. And then I have this, in my clinic, I really focus on quality care over quantity care. So I'm not trying to get everybody in town into my clinic, because then I don't help anybody that way, because they're just in and out,
Mm-hmm.
in and out. And so my clients, they come in, there's only two people who don't have an hour, and that's because they cut it down to 45 minutes, or there's transportation issues. Everybody gets an hour. People get more than one time a week. They get what they need, and they see progress, and it's amazing. So then, but of course, the opposite end of that is that we have such a growing community here in Twin Falls, and then everywhere we have this growing need for services for children and for families to help people grow and develop and overcome obstacles in their lives. So I have this growing waiting list, and I like, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? It's just driving me crazy, because I want to be helping, and I want to be seeing people thrive and families grow. So I ran across this used to be occupational therapist. She now does coaching for occupational therapists to learn how to move businesses online. And so I started listening to her, and then I got on a phone call with her, and I started a program to learn how to help more people with a wider reach through online coaching program that I developed myself, but being directed in the kind of the nitty gritty stuff. And I realized that even though I couldn't affect people in my clinic, I couldn't get everybody in, I could provide education and coaching and direction through my online emotionally empowered parenting coaching program,
Mm-hmm.
which has been fantastic. And then the thing, if we jump forward a little bit, now
Mm-hmm.
we're 3 months after starting that, and I got a call from a charter school up in Boise, 2 hours away from where I'm at. And they were having challenges, number one, finding services for their kids in the school, and families having trouble with insurance, which, again, like, same old story, heard that before. So I talked with them and said, yeah, it's kind of it's a statewide problem. It's a regional problem. There just are not enough service providers. There's not enough occupational therapists. And they said, well, it's really exciting to hear about this coaching program. So we want to be able to tell our families, and how can they contact you, and yada, yada, yada. And then a week later, they reach out to me again. And they said, Ivan, we're really excited about what you're doing, and we are wondering if you would consider, can we get you to work with our school somehow? And I said, well, I don't have a lot of time because I'm so filled up. And they said, well, what about your coaching program? Can you adapt your coaching program, not necessarily for the kids, but can you adapt it to teach our staff how to care for themselves and how to gain skills from occupational therapy that they can use in their classroom? And here you were talking about your experience of me working with your students in class, and how you benefited from them working, and you being able to pick up techniques, and to have this program where staff can get that directly. And so we're right in the middle of a week ago, I was on a call with them, and they were talking, hey, let's do this. And I said, yes, let's do this. And they said, well, how do we set this up? And I said, I have no idea.
Yeah, but like, it obviously needs to happen.
Yeah. And I said, how would you set it up? And they said, I have no idea. So so I spent this week putting the program together, and then we're continuing to talk. And I've started to reach out to other school districts, and other people are excited, and they're reaching out to school districts for me. And It's exciting. Um, if I can help people in a greater degree and see people grow and see people learn and have families have greater peace and greater success, if I can have teachers who are not overwhelmed and know how to manage anxiety and pressure and have tools that they can use to help students in the classroom so that the kids aren't overwhelmed and the kids can focus and develop skills and know how to help with pencil grips and know how to help if they're having troubles making friends, or
Mhm.
even kids who are younger grades and they're having wedding accidents at school. What do I do? What do I do? Hey, you know what? That's all built into the program.
Mhm.
And there's stuff that I've already recorded. There's a lot of stuff that I've already recorded, and I just have this huge list of things that I'm still going to add, and it's just exciting. It just bubbles with excitement for me.
That is really exciting. I remember when you first came to the school where I worked and you were teaching us about sensory integration. And I had learned a little bit in college, but not a ton. And you were explaining the bus depot, how all of our
Yep.
sensory information is like all the buses coming into the depot. And if the depot gets too crowded, like everybody crashes. If
Yeah.
there's nobody there to
Uh-huh.
organize the buses, if they don't follow the schedule. And that was like, oh, that makes so much sense to me. And then after we built our sensory therapy room at the school, so many cool things rippled out from that. Like students were able, not just during therapy time, but like
Hmm.
during the rest of the week, students and teachers and paraprofessionals and stuff could go and utilize that for various reasons. And I just love the idea of it being also like in classrooms, like teachers getting coaching and being able. That's just a really cool, especially like having been an educator in Idaho, it's really tough there.
Yeah.
And so I just love that like administrators are going, yeah, we know it's tough. We're trying to figure out a way to make this livable.
Yeah. I was getting feedback from some of the other schools that I'm in, and I was saying, "Hey, what do you think about this program, and how should I structure it, and what type of help should I offer, and what type of pricing should I put on it, even that much?" And then consistently, it's been, "This is amazing. Hey, I know that you come out here, but you're only out here this amount per week. We might want this program too, even though we have access to you, but this would give us more access to you, and it'd be worth it."
Hmm.
And then this went back into that conversation I was talking about with that administrator who this was the conversation that she's like, Ivan, you affect people more than you think that you do, and this is worth more than you think that it is worth.
Hmm.
Which is, again, goes back to like, it feels weird, but I need to recognize it, because recognizing that I do make a difference in other people's lives and recognizing that I can help others grow helps me to have the confidence to reach out to a greater number of people and say, this is going to change your life, and this is going to
Hmm.
change your staff, and this is going to change your students, this is going to change your family, because I recognize it. And that's the consistent feedback that I get.
And I think being part of a community is being able to recognize this is what I contribute to my community. These are my strengths.
Yeah.
This is what I have to offer. This is how I can participate and lift up the community. Here am I. Here I am. And I think
Yeah.
Twin Falls is going to be well, already has been much better for having you around to therapize our kids. On a serious note, like I'm really
Yeah.
glad that that's working out. So in addition to like starting a private practice, starting a virtual coaching business, and working in schools, you also have a couple creative practices that you balance it, like integrate into your life for some balance as well. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. So we'll start with woodworking, and then we're going to talk about theater. Those are the two
Yeah,
biggest ones. Music's in there too.
yeah, because that's how we actually like really like connected initially. Like you were in the school, but it wasn't until you said, "Hey, do you like theater?" that I was like, "Are we best friends?"
Yeah. Everybody likes theater. Sometimes they just don't know it yet.
Yeah, they don't know yet.
That's
It turns out some people really don't like musical theater. Who
no, and
knew?
see, and I still come back. They just haven't been to the right musical.
That's
That's
fair.
that's
That's fair.
yeah, I still come back with that, even if they're adamant. I'm just like, you just haven't been to the right one for you yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of people to come to musicals that way. You should try this
But
one.
have you seen this one?
This is how this goes. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we're talking about musical theater first. So,
I guess so.
oh man, yeah. My introduction to musical theater was when I was 6 or 7 years old, and we had just moved from Hagerman, this tiny, tiny town, over to Rupert, another small town but bigger than that. And we had, as part of our church group, they decided to put on a musical and do Music Man. And I was just one of the kids in the ensemble, just in the band. And I remember watching the guy playing Harold Hill, the lead, and going, wow, this is a cool story. This is so much fun. And he is great. He's having a fantastic job. And I love the character, and I loved what he was doing. And it just entranced me. So I did some other stuff, and in high school I did some theater, but I was so shy, and I would not sing for auditions. And we did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers my junior year in high school. And after some of the shows, I got feedback. It's like, yeah, the leads were good, but we liked watching you. You had so much character. You had so much this, you know, so much that. And I went, what? Like, okay. And that was kind of like, okay, hey, maybe I have a talent here. And then I went to college, and then I graduated from college, and we moved out here to Twin Falls, and we were here for a couple of years, and theater just kind of went out of my head. And my wife grew up, her mom did musical theater up in Boise. So we both have theater backgrounds. And somebody invited us to a show that was going on in town. Somebody was doing Beauty and the Beast, and we went there, and I'm sitting in the audience going, this is a fantastic show. And I turned to my wife and says, you know what? When the kids are older and when things are a little less crazy, I would love to get back on stage. And she talked me into auditioning that fall, and I got the lead in a show called Curtains. And then I was in a show once a year for several years. And then I started doing a little bit more, breaking my rule of once a year and doing a couple times a year. And then I started directing and still doing shows. And I learned that, man, I love being on stage. And my favorite part of being on stage is, yes, there's a story. Yes, there's a fun element of bonding with the cast and producing something and that cohesion of team. But I love what it does to the audience. I love feeling the energy from the audience, and I love being able to feed them. And the greatest joy that I get as an actor is realizing that many people go to see musical theater to escape reality because the world is tough. And if I can get on stage and if I can help other people feel emotions that they normally don't feel, or maybe that they hide, or to let out some stress, to laugh, to smile, to cry, that brings me joy. Because then I've improved somebody else's life through my acting and presenting myself in a different way. And then directing is a different type of joy. I get to sit in the audience and I get to hear their reactions. And so I come in from different directions, but it's almost like I have my own little monster that here's the story and here's the script. But as a director, you still have a lot of license in how you present that story and the details of how it's all the little nitty bits of it, the lighting, the costumes, the blocking, how people move across the stage, and how their lines are said and bantered back and forth. The most directing I've done is for some youth groups. I did one for a school one time, and that was more work than I thought because there wasn't this pre-existing theater culture there. I had to teach the culture as well.
Was that Peter Pan?
That was James and the Giant Peach.
Oh, okay. Because I'm remembering the big alligator you had to build.
The giant crocodile, yeah.
Oh, crocodile, sorry.
yeah. My wife, she loves me. So Peter Pan was the second show that I directed for Jump Company, which is the community youth group. Yeah. Yeah, the summer before I was directing, I directed in January and February. And so the summer before I spent building this crocodile for Peter Pan, and I went with a steampunk mode. So everything, the pirates were steampunked, and this crocodile had gears all over him and whatnot. But he was 16 feet long, living in our living room all summer long. Finally, my wife was just like, we need to get this out of the living room. So we actually took him up to our bedroom and kind of snuck him by So I lived up there all winter long.
Oh,
My
she's
wife
so
loves me.
patient. She
She is
is.
so patient. Yeah. We ended up taking out one of the sections because it was just a little too complex. I had it in different sections that were built around so kids could be in the crocodile. One was the head turning and opening up the jaw, and they would sit on these chairs. We ripped apart the chairs so they had somewhere to sit, and then the crocodile's feet were their legs, and they'd have to paddle along with their legs to make the crocodile move. And there was a middle section, and I took that out. So then it just went from the front section to the back section to the back legs, and then this tail that went behind. And it fit the stage just fine. We couldn't have done a bigger crocodile. It was too big to start with, but I wanted a huge crocodile, and it was fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah. And then I've directed some adult shows. And then this last summer, I did a readaptation of Treasure Island. I wrote it with a friend of mine. I did most of the heavy lifting of the writing, and now I'm in the middle of writing a second show. So this was Treasure Island that I did this last summer, and that again was another just big burst of creativity and enjoyment, and I learned so much from writing and developing characters and taking a story and then warping it. And I have inklings of, well, here's how to do my own story and get my own story out there. So it's exciting. And then I just got off stage last weekend in Once the Musical, and I was asked to be in there last minute right before rehearsal started because somebody else had to drop, and they said, Ivan, we need this one character where you do it, and we know that you have some other stuff going on, but will you do it? And everybody played live instruments, and so I learned to play guitar for this show, and it's super fun. And now I play guitar, and it's marvelous. Music, art, creating things brings me joy.
I had a professor in the education department who was adamant that people who work with children should stay high on the learning curve all the time throughout our careers, because it helps us retain the empathy of doing hard things.
Yeah.
Especially if we work with students who have disabilities or developmental delays, because for those of us who grew up non-disabled or typically developing or without any unique challenges, things came easy to us when we were growing up, or presumably came easy to us as we were growing up. And then if we're working with kids, we can forget what it's like to be learning something for the first time. And so to always be learning something new, like guitar or a new show or memorizing lines or any other new skill, artistic skill or technical skill or whatever.
Yeah, now this is gonna lead us into talking about woodworking, but keep going.
Yeah. Like having that like high on the learning curve edge, like little edge of frustration, can help keep us empathetic when our students are struggling. Like, no, it's not easy. I get it. That professor actually was learning the harp.
Oh, wow.
When she was our professor. So like she was, a college professor. She'd been teaching for decades. She's like, yeah, I'm learning the harp right now. Like, do I need to learn the harp? No. Thought it'd be cool. And it keeps me high on the learning curve. So I have like this compassion for like people who are struggling with learning something new. So like I've learned ukulele. I've completely forgotten it. It would be, if I pick it up again, I'll definitely be on the learning curve again. But I'm like you. I like to have different creative things going on. And it's funny that I ended up painting, because the first time I painted, I hated it because I wasn't good at it. So it's definitely been one of those like struggle through because I want to be good at this thing type of hobbies. And it's not a hobby anymore. It's like my job.
Yeah. Well, and I enjoy the style that you've developed because it's unique, and I love being able to see it as an expression of yourself. I can see you in it when I look at your artwork, and
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. I love being able to see people's creative expressions. So my middle daughter, I've got a wide range of the challenges with my children. Everybody has challenges. Everybody has challenges themselves. Everybody has challenges with their children. This is something I consistently tell people, is that when you think that you see somebody, somebody, and they have everything put together, that just means that you don't know them well enough.
Right. Yeah. Like I said,
Yeah.
presumably had an easy time growing up. Like
Yeah.
now that I live with my parents as an adult, something will come on TV and I'll laugh and I'll go like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that would have given me nightmares as a kid." Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and like
yeah.
it's completely innocuous, but like I had a really vivid imagination. I would come up with ways that I could die. Like
I
I
had
was
nightmares by looking at a book cover once.
Yep,
Yeah.
the movie Pete's Dragon. Yep, the final
Mm.
like at the end when they're trying to capture the dragon and the two bad guys and like there's also like the bad guy family in Pete's
Yes.
Dragon.
Yes. It's been a
And
hot
then
minute since I've
the
seen it.
two snake oil salesmen are trying to catch the dragon. Like that whole scene, like for whatever reason, gave me nightmares. Like I think that it was terrifying to me that like bad people would be like fighting over
But people are
kidnapping
trying to,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the other night they were talking about what was it? Oh, there was like rats on TV on some show we were watching, and I laughed and I was like, "Oop!" I said, "They're gonna get hantavirus," and my parents looked at me, and I was like, "Well, I thought I was gonna get hantavirus when I was a kid." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What child
What?
worries about hantavirus?" I was like, "The hyperlexic one
Me?
who was like 8 years old reading about hantavirus outbreaks in Reader's Digest." Just because you
Yeah.
can't read something doesn't mean you
Doesn't mean that
should.
you should. Yeah.
Yeah, like I could read everything when
Oh,
I was little. And so if they left magazines laying around, I would read them. I shouldn't have read them, but I did.
but you did. Yeah. Careful what you leave out. So learning new things and teaching. So I always liked woodworking. I just had this fascination with it, but I had a handsaw and a drill really up until 2012, and I had a colleague give me a book on scroll saw, how to make puzzles. And I went, "This is really cool. This is really fascinating. What in the world is a scroll saw?" So I looked it up, and then I bought one I got one for Christmas and started playing with it. And the learning curve for me was trying to fit these thin, string sized blades into this machine, and learning how thick of wood I can cut and how fast to cut and what pressure to use and what speed to put the machine in. And I broke blade after blade after blade after blade, and I warped and I burnt and I just got better and better. And then I was making flat puzzles, and then 3-dimensional puzzles, and then puzzle boxes. And then I got into making bowls on the scroll saw and putting together different colors of wood. And then back in 2021, I had a friend say, "Hey, Ivan, will you make earrings?" And I went, earrings out of wood? Like, they're going to break, they're going to snap, they're going to be too small, they're going to be hard to work with. And she talked me into it. And so I made some, and they're awesome.
They are. I
And
have a pair of them. I wear them when
yeah.
when I do market, like I do one or two markets a year, but whenever I sell my art in public, I wear the earrings I bought from you.
Yeah. Oh, fun. Yeah.
Yep. They were the colored pencil
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got into doing colored pencil and learning how to do that. And I always come and look at life like there is just not enough time in life to be able to do everything that I want to do. There's so
Mhm.
much to learn, so much to grow. And yes, it can be frustrating. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but to come out from the other side and realize that you've learned something, that you've created something, that you've produced something, and through the hard effort, it brings joy to you and it brings joy to other people. That's
Mhm.
that's amazing to me. One of the questions that you had asked me was before we started was, if there's something that you can tell families or tell children.
Oh, yeah. Like all families and homes are different, right? Like we're all
Yeah,
diverse. But if you had like what is one shift most of us could probably make in our homes to facilitate more ease? That
yeah,
question?
yeah, yeah. I would say slow down, which is goofy
Mhm.
after I just said that there's
Right,
not
no,
enough
I know
time.
because I'm the same way. Like I wanna but I have had to slow down. Like if I've learned anything, like I think my top 3 lessons since I got sick are slow down, we need each other,
Yeah,
and like take your meds.
Hey, right.
Or like get enough sleep. Like, but really,
Yeah.
like the two biggest things are like you got to slow down, and
Yeah.
like we can't do this alone. Like we all need each
Yeah.
other.
That brings me back to the first story of me talking about quitting my job. When I quit my job, right before that, I got to the doctor and she said, Ivan, I am not letting you out of my office until your blood pressure is under control. My face would be flushed all the time, just terrible. And I have a family history of heart stuff. And so it's quite serious for me.
Mm-hmm.
After quitting my job, 9 months later, I was off my blood pressure meds. I used to have joint pains. I have not had joint pain, and I can't even think now to the last time that I know that I was still having it a year ago. I remember a time walking and having a hard time walking and thinking I need to change what I'm doing for work. And this was after still changing my job. So yeah, so taking time, slowing down, which on the one hand is frustrating to think, oh, but there's not enough time to do everything that I want to do, and there isn't enough time. But when I do slow down, and when people can slow down, what it does is it allows you to enjoy the moments that you do have,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows you to put some things into perspective, and it allows you to connect better with yourself and with your children, with your significant others, and it brings more joy, and that joy counterbalances the stress and anxiety that we often feel in the world. One of the greatest things that people talk about how terrible COVID was and how stressful it was. And
Mm-hmm.
for our family, we recognized how good it was. Not that there was sickness, but it forced us to slow down, and it forced us to cancel a lot of things that we were spread out doing and really just spend time with each other. And we have wonderful memories from that. And my wife and I were just talking last night, just like, we're getting busy again. We need to slow back down, and we need to reconnect as a family, and make sure that we've had sports going on, we've had this going on. All of our kids were just scattered everywhere, and now those things are done. We're just like, we need to slow back down. We need to reconnect and take the time to find joy and find each other and to thrive.
I really appreciate that. I was a hyper scheduled tween and teen, and
Yeah.
it turns out that the type of ADHD I have, that is probably why I was also getting things done. Because like I depend on, or at least at the time I needed like that level of cortisol was like replacing the dopamine that I need
Yeah.
to finish things. Um,
Yeah.
but I have also had horrible stomach problems since high school because it's not healthy to be that stressed and that scheduled as a developing
No.
human,
No.
And so the last 10 years of my life has been unlearning all of the stuff I learned for the first 2/3 of my life,
Yeah.
which was all that hyper scheduling and hyper intense, do all the things. And I still have to resist doing that because when I'm having a good day, right? Oh, I don't have much pain. My head's clear. Like, that is so rare that I just like I hit the ground running and I try to cram as much into one of those days as I can. And then I really regret it the next day. And I'm like,
And
oh
then you
yeah, no,
regret
I really am sick and disabled. I should have just like,
it.
kept a steady pace and maybe slowed down yesterday.
Well, I don't even think that is for people who are sick and disabled. I think that's
I
true
think
for
it's
everybody.
everybody. Yeah.
That, hey, I feel great, so I'm going to overdo it.
But weekend warriors, right? How many people of our
Uh-huh.
generation
Yeah.
say, I need a weekend to recover from my weekend, or I need a
Yeah.
vacation to recover from my vacation?
For my vacation.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Like we just need, yeah, like you said, to cherish the moments we have while we're in them.
Yeah. There's so much to do and there's so much to learn in this world, but balancing that with learning how to cherish the moments and to enjoy the moments and not be so focused on what's coming next and not getting distracted by the the things that have happened in the past, the mistakes that we've made, not beating ourselves up about that, learning to accept who we are, learning to accept that we're growing, and so we're constantly different, but enjoying where we are in the moment of, enjoying our families, enjoying the aspects of work, aspects of talent and creativity, of hobbies, of disconnecting so much from, I think so many times electronics, they are so powerful in the type of stimulus that they give, that they suck us in, and it doesn't allow us to be grounded and connected. And if we can rebalance ourselves from that and get to a point where we're truly living in the moment and being surrounded with awareness and interaction and connection, it affects our mentality, it affects our physical health, it affects our ability to connect and show love and appreciation and to uplift others and to be in a better spot ourselves. Life becomes better.
I will admit, I'm attached to my phone. I'm very attached. That's actually how I connect with my loved ones, because none of them live, but very few of them live here. But yes, I understand the balance with electronics is actually very important.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between connecting with your loved ones over your phone and doom scrolling, as it were.
Oh, and using it to dissociate, because I also do that too.
Yeah.
Because when I need to check out, that's also where I go. I'm like, I need to be away from whatever's happening out here for 5 minutes, and then I will come back. Oh yeah, it's a multi-use. It's like the Swiss Army knife of.
Well, and even as you said, there's a difference between disconnecting for a couple of minutes and disconnecting all day long.
Yeah. Yep. Which I've also done. But yeah, it's like, but mindfully, like, I'm like, I am mindfully disconnecting all day long. No. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have one more question before we go.
Okay.
And that is, what is one true thing that you have learned through your work with children and families?
The one true thing that I see again and again and again, and this doesn't matter if you have a family member or child or yourself who is doing well and excelling, to a child who is struggling or who is aggressive or who is stealing or who is whatever it is. The true thing that I keep coming across is that people are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have and with the knowledge that they have and the perspectives that they've grown with. Sometimes those perspective and sometimes those routines and mental habits that they get into are not the best, but it's what they've learned and what they've developed. And so if they can be given better tools and better knowledge and better pathways to possibilities, they improve, because people want to be the best version of themselves that they can. And so when you come across somebody who you're just like, oh man, that person is really aggressive, or that person is really mean, or that person is really disconnected, or they're trying to manipulate, or taking a moment to reflect and say, wow, okay, I can see that. I've got my own issues, but I can see that that person is really struggling. I wonder why, and how can I help lift them in whatever small part I can. That's the truth that I see repeated again and again. And it doesn't matter who I come across, or even people in the news. It's still okay. They're doing the best that they know, and sometimes that doesn't work well. Sometimes it's actually quite terrible, some of the things that people do.
It's true.
But they're still limited by the best that they know.
Thank you. That's something that I noticed when I was in the classroom as well. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here today. I appreciate your
welcome.
time.
This was fantastic.
It was wonderful catching up with you. If our listeners would like to get in on some of that emotionally empowered parent coaching, where can they find you?
There's a couple different ways.
Okay.
Certainly reach out to me through email at Ivan at castletwinfalls.com. That's IVAN at CASTLETWINFALLS.com. You can go to my website, which is www.castletwinfalls.com. You can also follow me and message me on Facebook at Ivan M. Hardcastle, or you can find me on Instagram at Ivan_the parent coach.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hoorf. To get the complete show notes and all the links mentioned on today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. Join the blessed herd of St. Winkus. By signing up for our newsletter, you can get Hoorf episodes delivered directly to your inbox. What's more, you get invitations to our monthly coffee and biscuits chat, where you get to hang out with Ricky and Elle, talk about the show, and connect on the topics that mean the most to you. You can sign up for that at hoorfpodcast.com. If you become a patron for only $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, help pay my editor, and join a community of caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, the chronically ill queer femme who is very tired, on this episode of Hoorf. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Hoorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Ellen Wink. Audio editing by Ricky Cummings at Ricky Poo. Music composed by Ricky Cummings. Hoorf is a production of Ellen Wink Art Studio, LLC, all rights reserved. Hoorf can be found on all social media platforms at Hoorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast.
He was 16 feet long, living in our living room